Before I start this review, I just want to make it clear that this is only going to be covering Season 1, and specifically Season 1 from Episode 1 to 54. I didn't watch anything past that for Season 1, so this is just going to be strictly from Episode 1 to 54. The reason I'm doing that is because everything that comes after Episode 54 was redone in I Should Know Joke 2 and improved upon in just about every way, so I didn't actually even I Should Know Joke 2. Doing that is because everything that comes after Episode 54 was redone in I Should Know Joke 2 and improved upon in just about every way, so I didn't actually even watch those episodes. So do keep that in mind when I make this review, and I suggest anyone that watches I Should Know Joke to stop after Episode 54 and continue with the second season. Also warning it, there will be minor spoilers in this review. Alright, but now that that's made clear, let's get on with the review. I Should Know Joe has a really old school art style and OST, and honestly, it's not going to be accessible to everybody. I mean, at this point, this anime is over 50 years old, but regardless, I Should Know Joe is still one of the most influential anime ever made. This is mostly due to its forward-thinking directing style, as well as its very ahead of its time animation. This anime was produced throughout the late 60s and came out in 1970, so when you watch this, don't expect it to have incredible animation compared to nowadays anime. But either way, the animation still kind of holds up for me. It's still watchable, and I didn't really mind it a lot of the time. There's clearly a lot of effort put into this anime, especially during
nowadays anime? Shouldn't it be anime nowadays?
Animation still kind of holds up for me. It's still watchable, and I didn't really mind it a lot of the time. There's clearly a lot of effort put into this anime, especially during some of the later parts in the anime. The animation gets really good. The directing was also very good in this anime, and you could tell that it influenced a lot of the directing styles from a lot of anime that came out after it. There are some scenes that just capture the boxing environment really well, and sometimes you can feel the dread of being in the ring just like Joe is. This one scene in particular stuck out to me the most, though. We feel the absolute dread of being completely out of energy, and we also get these really unsettling breathing noises from Joe while the clock just ticks up. But with that being said, neither of those aspects rival the amazing characters this anime has. Early on, I was especially able to relate to Tonge Dante a lot. He feels very real in a situation as one that pretty much anyone can relate to at least some degree. He's a drunkard old man who's grasping onto his last hope to fulfill his boxing goals in life when he meets Joe. He's pretty much been waiting for this moment his entire life ever since he wasn't able to box anymore. He wanted to become a coach, but he could never really find the right person to be able to coach in the first place. And he was also sort of excommunicated from the boxing community as a whole. Once he finds Joe, he feels like this is his last hope in life, so he clings onto the foolish belief that Joe will box for him, and he continues deluding himself for some time. Even though Joe has no interest in boxing, he starts using the old man's hopes to his own benefit, and he pretends like he's training when the old man gets a job so that he can work for him in Joe's future. But little does he know that Joe's not even training at all, he's just stealing from him. The old man gets hinted at this a few times early on, but he continues lying to himself as if there's no way Joe would betray him that harshly. He's grasping for pretty much anything he can get in his life at this point. Joe himself, however, was the complete opposite early on. I actually really disliked him as a person. He was kind of just a big asshole to everybody. The only people he seems to even be able to relate to are the kids who are running around the town. But as for the adults, he pretty much seems to hold a grudge against every single one of them, especially the rich ones. But as the anime goes on, we get a lot of character development from multiple different characters, especially Joe. Joe just becomes a much better person as the story goes on, and it's for this reason that I actually want to root for him later on during the fights. Joe acts tough a lot of the time, but you can tell it's kind of just an act of confidence. He isn't just this unbeatable boxer who beats all of his opponents easily. He's really just a human who has to train hard every day. And he also has to constantly overcome obstacles thrown his way in order to win these games. And this is the reason I dislike a lot of the early episodes so much, because it kind of makes him feel like he's just some unbeatable superhuman. But later on, we literally see him getting beat up by people he would easily be able to beat. Due to his mental state at the end of the season, he pretty much can't even beat up these random bar owners. And I also just really like the player-coach dynamic that Joe and Tonge Dante have. They often withhold information or just straight up lie to each other sometimes if they think it's going to be beneficial for them. I also really like Nishi as a character. Early on, he projects himself to be a tough guy in the holding cell, but this is all just to hide his insecurities. Once he's thrown into an environment where he's actually the weak one, we get to see how weak he actually is, and this makes him not just some one-dimensional bad guy, but rather a very human-like character who people can even relate to, especially later on. I actually didn't expect Nishi to be as much of an important character as he actually was, but as the show goes on, we actually see him boxing side by side with Joe in his own weight class. I really like this dynamic of having more than just Joe as a boxer. We get to also follow Nishi. I thought the dynamic for that was really important because Joe's this overconfident boxer who thinks he can take on anyone, while Nishi is actually someone with a lot of insecurities. He doesn't think he's good enough, and he struggles from performance anxiety, and we see this in a lot of the fights. And when he wins his first game, it was extremely satisfying because it felt like he took so long to get there. He was even thinking of retiring already.
This is... I'm stopping it halfway. This is easily Tricky's best review by 10 million miles. I'm actually interested. No text on the screen, using examples from the source. The flow is infinitely better than every other anime review that he's done. How did he do it? How did he do it? So impressed.
After just a few games of boxing, but once he wins a game, he starts gaining more confidence, and he starts building that confidence up over time. Now, my biggest problem with this is usually the first 15 episodes as a whole. Honestly, did not like these episodes that much. I thought the story was good, but I thought there were a lot of problems that were kind of hard to overlook. Not only that, it was also kind of just hard to watch in general just because of how much of an asshole our main character was. That's not necessarily a problem, though. I actually like that for the story a lot because of his character development. But the problems with these episodes lie in the fact that Joe's able to just take out like 10 to 15 gang members at a time. He's also able to take on like 15 to 20 police officers at a time. These type of things happen so much during the early parts of the anime, and it's honestly kind of just unwatchable. And I thought the police officers didn't really have much presence. They didn't feel like they were actually police officers who had been trained. They also didn't feel very human in all the scenes. Again, they're just kind of there in the background for the story to play out. None of them actually come up with any creative way to capture Joe or anything. They're just kind of there. I wouldn't really expect them to be top-notch police officers or anything just because the era this anime takes place in. But I mean, come on, you got like 15 to 20 police officers and you can't even take out this one punk kid. There's also this weird scene where Kishi boxes a bunch of pigs on a stampede. Yeah, so there's pretty much just kind of a lot of unbelievable shonen like nonsense that happens early on, but this didn't stop me from liking the anime overall, mainly because it doesn't really happen past the early episodes. We don't really get any more scenes like that where you're just able to take out like 20 people at a time. It gets much more realistic as it goes on. It feels like you get to a turning point when you get to the second half of the prison arc, when Dante and everybody set up this big boxing tournament for everyone to participate in. I really like how a bunch of the people who felt like assholes in the juvenile prison started becoming better people. This tournament and this newfound passion for boxing really brought out everyone's hearts, and it kind of turned their lives around for the better, especially Joe. Everyone in this prison was just angry and bitter at each other all the time, but once they find boxing, they sort of become new people just because of this hobby.
Bro, that little go, how big is her head, bruv? Bro, how big is your head, lady?
They sort of become new people just because of this hobby. They all want to talk about it all the time and practice and get better at it. And it kind of gives everyone a goal. And it sort of shows that the prison system, being as complex as it is, isn't really even doing anything to these people. If anything, the prison system is just making them even worse off. But what really turns these people's lives around is them having an actual goal and something they enjoy doing. This part is also effective because it not only gave Joe and everyone else a chance to start appreciating boxing more, but it also gives us as the viewer a chance to get into it more as well. But once you make it out of the prison, this is where the true anime starts. All of the practice that Joe's been putting in all this time will finally come into play. Joe's able to become a boxer, and we get to watch him try and make a name for himself in the boxing scene starting from nothing. And the actual fights themselves are definitely one of the biggest highlights in the anime. The fights are really grueling in your face and also intense, and it's kind of hard to watch at times, but that's just because of the nature of the sport. The creators did a really good job of making the environment feel alive, like we're really back in the 60s watching some underground boxers duke it out. They also did a great job of making these fights really suspenseful. Most punches feel like actual punches, like they're actually doing damage, and a lot of the time it's hard for some of the characters to even stand up. Due to Joe's unique boxing style, there's a lot of mind games that take place during all of these fights. After his first few fights, people are wanting to figure out how to counter his no-guard style as well as his cross-counter technique. And as the fights go on, Joe can't rely on his cross-counter as much as he used to because people figured out how to counter it. So as the anime goes on, he has to evolve more and more as a boxer and actually hone his skills rather than just being able to rely on this technique. So his opponents don't just just feel like a static roadblock. Instead, they're constantly trying to find out ways to counter his bizarre playstyle. This adds a spark to the matches, and it also adds a layer of mystery to the matches as well, since we're trying to figure out how they're countering Joe's style, and we're also trying to see how Joe adapts to
Bro, she's tiny. I didn't think she was that small. Oh my god, what the fuck? Oh no. Bro, who is that kid with he's the kid at the top. Holy shit.
Style, and we're also trying to see how Joe adapts to their counters. This is why this is so effective as a sports anime. The actual techniques that are used are real and based on actual strategies real boxers use. Watching this anime could easily open someone up to get into boxing, which is one of the main reasons this genre exists. And you don't even need to know anything about boxing before coming into this anime because we learn alongside it, Joe. The fights themselves are also incredibly well animated for the time, and it just feels like there was so much thought put into each and every shot. Even outside of the fights, this anime can be very grueling at times. Watching Rikishi force himself to lose weight in order to get himself into Joe's weight class is one of the most brutal things I've seen in anime. Just imagining how hard it would be to lock yourself in a room for this amount of time without food or water is pretty insane to think about. And of course, the worst part of all that is the consequences Rikishi ends up facing because of this decision. And even though this anime is about boxing, it also kind of criticizes the sport at the same time. It's not just glorifying boxing as being this amazing sport that everyone should get into. It also paints it in a negative light, showing us the dangers of the sport. And not just the dangers of boxing, but it really shows that if you go too far with any sort of competitive thing, it can actually consume your whole life just as it does for Joe and Rikishi. It also covers a bunch of other things like sports media, and I actually thought it was sort of ahead of its time in a bunch of these topics as well. But overall, the themes are not very in your face, and they're actually more subtle, which I really like. If you're a fan of sports anime, this is an absolute must watch. I also think the fight with Rikishi is probably one of the best in anime. I also think the last 6 episodes as a whole are just incredible. I do think this anime is a little rough around the edges, but regardless, I was still able to enjoy it a lot. Even with its outdated animation, I just really like the characters and the fights, and I definitely think this is one of the best sports anime ever made. I'm giving this one a decent 8. I'm also going to be reviewing season 2 pretty soon, and I'm not sure when that'll be. It could be like a month or something. I don't know how long it'll take me to make that video, but I'm going to put a lot of effort into that one. But let me know in the comments if you guys watch this anime and what do you think of it. Let me know if you like it, if you don't, and tell me why. But that's all I have for this review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Hey.